Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. Sunday morning. It's already a little after 11. So on yesterday, we mainly fielded questions and, of course, talked about some things we had started a previous discussion on in Genesis. Some things were asked, and I think hopefully we had some good discussions looking at some things in Genesis 3 and 4. So any questions about anything we talked about yesterday, and before we turn it over to see if any other general questions someone else may have? Anything about yesterday that was discussed? Okay. Do you have any other questions about either scripture or something that may have caught your attention? Questions or comments?
There are no
Good
questions.
morning.
Go ahead.
Didn't Angela or someone have the question? They said they would hold them till today.
Oh yeah, she sent it to
We
me.
sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Angela, are you on today?
Yes,
Okay. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
The question that she sent to me is when Jesus says that I am the resurrection and the life, was he speaking spiritual truth being hidden?
I left a word out about.
I know what you meant, babe. I got
Okay.
you. You know I know you.
I know.
Actually, it was not talking about it being hidden. It was talking about it being revealed. Resurrection speaks to an awareness of life that we were not aware of before. We talk about resurrection meaning something coming back to life. However, if it's spiritual, it cannot die. It simply is beyond our awareness at that moment. So when Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, he could very well be saying, I am the resurrected life, meaning that I am the life that brought you to remembrance of what life is, because that's all he did. He gave us a remembrance of who we are. And so it was not being hidden as much as it was being revealed. Does that help you, Angela?
I'm gonna mute.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good.
I have one more question too. As far as the burial, I guess that's why. Well, I had that question too, but I was looking as the part as to bury something. That's why I asked, but you
Okay.
did answer my question.
Okay, good. Your body is a tomb. If you eat from this tree, if you become aware of good and evil, you're going to die. And right after it says that, what happens? You get clothed in flesh. Your body becomes a tomb. And in this tomb lies the pathway to truth. And if we look within with the eternal eye, we will see that pathway and we will follow it. However, if we look and we don't see, we see with our eyes, we remain, our truth remains within the tomb that is us until we are resurrected with our desires, of course. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Does that make sense to you guys? Any questions or comments about either one of those answers that were put forth? Okay.
Good morning, Pastor. That definitely makes sense because I was thinking how dangerous the journey can become. Oh, I hope I didn't hang up. If you approach everything from an intellectual standpoint or point of view, as opposed to realizing that this is a spiritual journey. And what you just described, I was going to ask you all to kind of talk about that today anyway, but I think you just did in the explanation that you gave Angela. I was, Lyndon, my sisters and I, we were at the Greenville Mall a couple of months ago, and this young lady came up, about a 20-something-year-old girl and a 40-something-year-old Asian woman, and they were wanting to witness to us. We were sitting there waiting to leave, waiting for Erling to come out of the mall. And she was trying to explain to me how all of what we've been taught as Baptists is so wrong. And she just kept talking, and I would ask her a few questions, and she would try to explain things to me. And I said to her at one point, we're being taught correctly because we understand that we're on a spiritual journey. And she said, oh, no, you're not on a spiritual journey. Where did you get that from? I said, well, what journey are you on? And she said, we're on the journey of being the keepers of the law. I don't know what law they were keeping. I don't know what she was referring to because I didn't ask any more questions at that point. And I basically explained to her, if you don't realize that you are a spiritual being and this is a spiritual journey that you're on, then I don't have anything else to say to you. I don't have anything for you because you're not hearing me and this conversation is over. So I think it is so many religious teachings out there that confuses so many people because she was on how water baptism didn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, if you're saying that, then what makes sense to you about baptism? She didn't understand being baptized in the Spirit and being immersed in spiritual things. And so as I was thinking about Angela's question and listening to what you said this morning, I'm just thinking you have to remember even the scripture tells you that there are mysteries to this gospel. And the understanding of these things are hidden in plain sight in the sense of if you never start on a spiritual journey, you never see spiritual truth. And I just kind of wanted to touch bases with that and by all means agree with what you said to Angela, because that opens up a bigger picture to me. But I didn't want us to lose sight of the fact that we are on a spiritual journey. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that what she's talking about is they didn't believe in the New Testament because usually what came to me actually when you were talking is usually when people say that they're keepers of the law, they're talking about the commandments and not even without even knowing what they mean. So it's impossible to be on a spiritual journey if you think that you're not on a spiritual journey. Because the universe is not going against your desires. Any other questions?
Hey, Red. I got about what we're talking about. Now, the spiritual journey, is to know yourself, ain't it?
Yeah.
To find what we're talking about, like finding yourself to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good morning, Pastor, everyone. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to, share something in terms of what Kathy, just mentioned. It seems like there's just so many laws that are being implemented, in the universe that I think causes even more division and separation in terms of knowing who we are. And I think just coming back to the point of origin, where the Bible says the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. And the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. And I think that as we go back and meditate and contemplate on our beginning, if we could just, again, get that first law understood, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul and strength, I think that, again, it gives us that foundation that we're on now that help us to cipher through all of the division and confusion that, the world is creating. So I just wanted to share those thoughts in terms of when I just heard, Kathy mention about laws, because I think that can be so divisional. So I just want to share those thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you. Remember that Jesus said that he came to rightly interpret the law, which means that it was not interpreted correctly before he came. And I think that that's one of the things, one of the major things actually that we miss. Anyone else want to speak to that? Before we get into a portion, I guess, of what we talked about yesterday, I want to say something about Adam. We were talking about Adam yesterday, and what don't know me after we got off was that Adam does not mean man. It's translated as man. If you look into the concordance, what you will see is 119 says Adam. It's with a small a lowercase a, and then 120 says Adam with a capital A. So, what is the difference between a lowercase a and a capital A? Well, the uppercase or the capital A is foreign to the Hebrew, to the Aramaic, to all of the languages out of the East, because there are no uppercase letters. So in the West, when there's an uppercase letter attached to something that we determine to be a name, then it becomes a proper name as opposed to being a verb and something of action. Adam is not a noun, it's a verb, because Adam speaks to the idea of something coursing through the veins, meaning that the blood or the wine flowing through something. So Adam is the entity through which the spiritual essence of the creator flows. Now, the other thing is this. Why is it that Adam has a root that says Adam, and it doesn't mean the same thing throughout the scriptures? Who changed that? The interpreters changed that. The Western interpreters changed that because they had no clue of the possibility of there being a spiritual entity. Therefore, they translated what they called the first man into Adam with the uppercase A, making it a proper name. They had no clue about anything spiritual. And that is the reason that we are so confused with the scriptures to this day, even with the translations of them. So what I'm saying to you is, wherever you see Adam, it is neither male nor female. When you look at Adam, it says of unknown origin. It also does not say that it is masculine or feminine. It simply says Adam. So why would Adam change when he gets to the garden? Or why would it change? Would it change at any point from the original Adam to the secondary Adam? And they both spelled exactly the same way. Am I making sense so far?
Yes.
So what I'm purporting, what I'm saying, that we have to be cognizant of that. And in being cognizant of that, we have to make some decisions. And the decisions that we have to make is, are we going to look at Adam as a spiritual entity or a physical man? Because when we move to the place of creation, that's where it starts looking like a physical man. When the in the second chapter of Genesis in particular, that's when it starts looking like a man. So what I'm saying in essence is this: whenever we say Adam, we have to correct each other if we are going to get it deeply embedded into our psyche that this is talking about a spiritual entity and not a person. Can you see that, the necessity in that? Because that changes everything, does it not? I remembered when I was thinking about that yesterday, that Audrey had mentioned something about a translation. Is it in the translation? I just remember what word we were discussing, Audrey, at that time when you raised that question about what did it really mean. I can't remember the word, but that was part of my memory from yesterday. Do you remember what you said?
Not sure, that was me.
Okay. But anyway, that's what I see in the understanding or the efforts to understand what Adam means. Any questions or comments about that? If it's not clear with you, just say it's not clear. If you don't know how to form a question about it.
It's not
Pastor,
clear.
you referenced, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
I'm done. I was just telling that it ain't clear with me yet.
Okay.
Okay. Pastor, I think you're referencing maybe when Evelyn talked about the word atom, as opposed
Okay,
to Adam.
okay,
Is that what you're
yeah.
referencing?
That's it. Yes, yeah, that's it. What I'm saying is this, Charles, and for all of you, of course. There is no physical being named Adam. It's a spiritual entity. In other words, your spirit, your spiritual essence is Adam. Every spirit that is embodied in a physical form is Adam. And when we talk about awakening Adam, what we're talking about is a desire to know who we are. And we are an Adam. When we are in religion, we are Adam, but we are asleep. When we regain a consciousness or an awareness, that's when Adam wakes up and begins to see what it was supposed to be and what it was its purpose for having been brought into existence in the first place. Does that help you, Charles? Or do I need to keep talking?
I'm going to catch it. Go on.
Say again?
So I'm about to catch it, but keep going.
Oh, okay. What I'm saying is that there's no difference between your spirit and Adam. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you say spirit, my spiritual essence, you can also say the essence of Adam, and that would be the same thing. That would be the
Okay,
same
I
because
got
your
you.
spirit, okay. The spirit is neither masculine nor feminine. It is simply the spirit with energies that birth things into existence. And when we talk about a womb, we are talking about a spiritual space that has been created for the purpose of bringing into existence, or for the purpose of creating, for the purpose of hearing, for the purpose of knowing who we are. All of these hearing, knowing are the same thing. That's why Jesus could say, I see what my Father say, because seeing and hearing, becoming aware, all that's the same thing. Jack, would you mute your phone, please? Jackie.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Um, I want to ask the question and have you walk it forward how we got here, because that recognition that you just said is a journey. We had a part of the journey. We had several discussions, and I remember Barb kind of tying it up beautifully one evening. I guess it was a Monday, but about dichotomies, things that look to be, heaven and earth, light and darkness,
Yeah.
and masculine and femininity. We look at these things, and if we give life to them, they become real. We because we are co-creators. So what we have grown to the thing to see that these things are one. They're all part of the same energy, but that when we discuss things and how we see it and how we arrive at these conclusions is also a part of the journey. Can you tie all that together? Because when you look at Adam and Eve, we know that they're one person, not one person, one principle, one type of energy, but it's the energy that comes together. So when we discuss feminine energy, when we look at Abraham and Sarah, we see the two parts of this thing, the two parts of Leah and Jacob, or whatever the case may be. But talk about it from that perspective, so it doesn't.
Okay.
So I guess it makes sense because we're still going to go back and forth and look at this thing from when we discuss masculinity or some other part of this, and so it not be confusing. Is that, you understand what I'm saying, Pastor?
I do.
Okay.
First of all, there is no separation between masculine and feminine in terms of Adam. There's no separation at all. They are not two entities. They are one and the same. Spiritually, you are Adam. You cannot separate masculinity from femininity, regardless of how hard we try. The only place where it is separated is in our material minds. And the reason it is separated in our minds is because we are seeing with our eyes. However, when we see with our eye, we see that it is inextricably tied together. It is one entity, period. And that is the reason when you look at Adam, it does not say male and female or energy, masculine energy, feminine energy. It does not say that. When it talks about creating them male and female, that's not male and female, that's slash, masculine, feminine, as opposed to and, because and separates it. The slash connects it. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
So when we talk about, when we began to talk about masculinity, and we start giving all of these physical examples of why men are treated the way they are treated, why women are treated the way they are treated, that journey that we were taking has led us to this place of seeing, not the fallacy of what we were talking about, but it has led us to seeing of the reality of what we were talking about without knowing it. It cannot be separated. So the manifestation, when we talk about the manifestation, and I'm gonna get to light and darkness in a minute, okay? When we talk about the manifestation of feminine and masculine, what we're actually looking at is that they are examples. If you don't treat the representative or that manifestation of what we see as feminine or masculine, then you are disrespecting or disregarding the desires of the Creator or the reason or purpose for bringing us into this earth. We were brought into this earth in order to make this earth the way it is in the spiritual realm. And the way we do that is, first of all, by having harmony within ourselves. You cannot have harmony within yourself if you don't recognize the unicity or the oneness of masculine and femininity. It's like taking a glass of water and trying to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen with your hands. That's not going to happen because it ceases to be water, right? So if we separate this in our mind, then it ceases to be what it was created to be, that is Adam. Now, when we see this and we begin to honor the creation, then what we begin to see is that we are the creation and the creator. We are not co-creators. We are creators, period. Elohim was not a co-creator. Elohim created. And what our purpose, purpose for creating is for below, as above, so is below. So that the harmony that exists in the spiritual realm will exist in this material world. If that is the case, then when we see the new heaven and the new earth, what are we seeing? When we see the new heaven, we are seeing an enlightenment that we never knew existed, as we are talking about with Adam now. And when we talk about the new earth, we're talking about a earth consciousness that exists in conjunction with the spiritual consciousness. That doesn't happen if you don't know clearly who you are. And the who, maybe I should do it this way. That doesn't happen until you know what you are. Because spiritually, it's not a who, it's a what. It's an entity. The pronouns that we use for spirit do not appear in the Hebrew or the Aramaic. It's simply the whether a word is masculine or feminine in the way it from its origin, that determines what it brings into existence. Nothing that is beneficial to man can be brought into existence unless it is brought into existence through Adam. And that existence comes from Adam because Adam is it as Elohim is. Does that make sense? Now, the blood of the Spirit is the essence of Elohim that permeates the spiritual being that we are. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Something you said really caught my attention when you were talking about heaven and earth. You cannot seek one without affecting the other. So if you were, as you mentioned, we understand more than what we did yesterday, understanding principle, you're automatically changing the earth as you see heavenly or deeper enlightenment. There's not only are they on the same plane, they're really the same thing. You can't turn on a light without affecting darkness. So you can't reach for you can't go east without going further away from west. One affects the other. So this thing, as you're explaining, it is impossible once you see it not to recognize that the spiritual essence of it is really been telling us all along the oneness of it. There is no separation with anything. The oneness of it, and through our physical world is only the illusion of the separation. So yeah, when you explain that, I don't know, it just kind of hit me in a different place.
Okay. Well, when we talk Audrey, did you have a question? Oh, I saw you unmuted.
Yeah. Can you talk more about the spiritual blood?
Okay, when I say the spiritual blood, I'm talking about the life itself, because the life of the physical human is in the blood, right? So the spiritual essence of the being is in the blood of the physical essence. Blood gives us life. You got it, Audrey?
Yeah.
Okay. When we talk about run light and darkness, what are we talking about? We're talking about the one and the same. One cannot exist without the other. Light always seeks darkness, and darkness seeks to escape light. If we look at light as being enlightenment, and we look at darkness as being wisdom, then what I'm saying in essence is, when you are enlightened, you seek darkness, because darkness is wisdom. And the more you make an effort to understand, you seek darkness, because what do you say? I'm in the dark about this, or you kept me in the dark. So, meaning that you did not explain this to me, or you did not enlighten me to this. So the more enlightenment we get, the more we are in search of wisdom, consciously or subconsciously. And every time we understand the wisdom, it is no different than turning on the light in a dark room. Does that make sense? And so wisdom and darkness does not occupy the same, I'm sorry, light and darkness does not occupy the same space. Darkness can only exist absent of light. And light is only manifested when it finds darkness. Because in the dark room, you don't see light. Am I right? So when that light is flipped on, what did it do? It dispelled the darkness. And when we look at it spiritually, it did not dispel it in terms of running it away. What it did, it brought understanding to that wisdom that we call darkness. Does that make sense? Somebody want to help me? Because I see puzzles on people's face. I don't see but 3 people, and 2 of them I see puzzled.
No, it's paradoxical.
Yeah, it is very much so. Very much so.
So it takes a minute to process it.
Okay.
Here's some more.
Pastor? Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna. What we call light and dark in this sort of metaphorical sense are one and the same thing. They are inseparable, 2 sides of the same coin. And there exists a unity that exists above, quote unquote, those 2 concepts. But that exists, the unity of what we would call light and dark exists in a way outside of this sphere of creation. The realm within which we are learning how to navigate the self, learning how to seek the light, learning how to project that light ourselves. But those 2 are the same thing. And in well, I'll leave it there. But anyway, I just want to add that for.
Thank you. One cannot exist without the other.
Pastor.
Go ahead, Myra, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, a lot was just said a few minutes ago, and I'm still mulling over it. Can we keep coming back to this in the future? Because we just need to keep hearing it again. Thank you.
Okay. And what portion of this are you talking about? All of it, or
The
the island part, or the light and darkness?
light and darkness.
Okay, okay, sure. Are there any? Do you have a question about that? Oh, you do, but you can't form it right now.
I just need to keep
Hey,
hearing it again. That's all.
Okay, okay.
hey, Pastor,
Yes, sir.
this is Charles.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting it as a physical way. Let me, explain it to you what I'm seeing. It's
Okay.
just like in your home, darkness there, but once you turn that light to it, darkness is still there, but the light overshadows it until you cut the light back off.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. They're the same. Yes.
Okay.
They're in the same space. Yeah. So
Okay.
enlighten me.
Thank
Enlighten me means that turn the light on in me. Bring me out of the darkness. Don't keep me in the dark about this.
I got you.
Okay. Right.
I see things as, in pictures, and the picture I have in my head is the example, whether you're talking about light and darkness or heaven and earth. You have two young parents, two young people, and these two young people have a baby, and they have no clue as to be parents, how to be parents. And a lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is seeking advice, but all of it comes through desire to do what's right and love and compassion for each other and for that baby. So they grow, and the baby turns out fine. Well, a couple of years later, she becomes pregnant again. And there is no panic this time because they built something. So what I'm saying is, if you could look at the first part of them is being darkness or being the earth, and after the baby comes, now they have experience. Whether experience involves mom and dad and everybody else that gives them advice, or just them on their trial and error. So the darkness should never be as dark in that area. The experience that you gain is permanent light. So the darkness should never be as dark. Now you will move from one place to another, and there'll be another place of darkness for some other place that you are. But as we now become enlightened, the earth should not be as far away from heaven as it has been in the past, because we are seeking that light, and the earth holds our experiences. So those things that we are growing in, those directions that we are seeing things and seeing ourselves, we have that two-sided coin grows to a place that is not two-sided. And I might be saying this, so I hope I'm not confusing anybody. But as you gain experiences, that gap, if you will, for lack of a better way of seeing it, between light and darkness, between heaven and earth, should be shrinking. And that is, to me, how you get to a place where there is no gender, there is no male, female, or any, masculine and femininity. It becomes one. Might be a poor example, but
no, I don't think so. As above, so is below. Meaning, what does that mean? The earth consciousness was given to us for the express purpose of creating heaven, creating enlightenment, bringing that into existence in this material world. When the Kushites established the spiritual basis for this land called Hakupata, Egypt, right?
Mhm.
What did the light do? What does it mean if I say that they were as above, so is below? Everyone, we say that the African was naive, but he wasn't. It's not naivete. It's seeing good in everybody. And when you are righteous and you live in the midst of righteousness, you don't know what unrighteousness looks like until you encounter it, right?
Mhm.
So let's say then that the kingdom was a kingdom of enlightenment. And we say that the darkness was no longer wisdom. The darkness became something different than what wisdom is. And it did that because of the creator desiring it. It became the pain, the agony, the sufferings, the murders, all these things became substance for the express purpose of allowing or giving us the ability to be creators. All of these things that we see that have beset us are the substance that we are supposed to utilize to bring utilize to create rather. And our creation is not to mimic the chaos, but our creation is to bring this chaos to a place where it desires wisdom as opposed to desiring what it sees and experiencing it with its eyes. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So what it experiencing with its eyes is what? What it's experiencing with its eyes is all the chaos that we see. This is the swirling energy in the deep. In the beginning, when we talk about creation, this is the swirling energy in the deep. All this chaos that we are experiencing now, if it causes us stress or if it frightens us, then we really don't get to the place where we understand the necessity of it. And if we don't understand the necessity of it, we are not clear on who we are, regardless of how much we call ourselves Elohim. Does that make sense? Once we realize that this is a substance as opposed to something that we are to rail against or to hate, then we began to see it different. We saw what? We see racism as a substance. And we are using that substance to bring us to a place where racism is a thing that's of the past, for lack of a better term, meaning that we are balanced within ourselves. We don't respond to or react, I should say, react to racism as we once did. We respond to it, but the way we respond to it is totally different than the way we reacted to it. And when we respond to it in a righteous manner, then that in itself brings more enlightenment into the earth. And those who are indoctrinated to embrace racism begin to see, quote unquote, the light. Are you following me? Yeah. They begin to see a better way. They begin to see that the first step towards that is not spirituality at all. The first step towards seeing is seeing that we are human, period. Then you go from beyond that, begin to see that every human is the image, every human has the image and likeness in it, meaning that the spiritual essence of every man is the same. It is your mind that tells you that it's different. And when we began to respond to racism differently, then the mindset begins to change of those who have perpetuated racism. Does that make sense? When the mindset begins to change, That is when light begins to appear. Or we begin to see light. Guess what else? The one who had perpetuated racism without even knowing it also sees the light. And when they see the light, they seek more light. One example that we work with, or we are one with so far anyway, is California. How many times has Eric talked about what he sees differently? Because he sees the light. He's being shown the light. How contentious was it in the beginning? It was contentious because it was something new and different, and it was difficult to wrap their minds around it, just like it was difficult for us to wrap our minds around it in the first place. So this whole idea of as above, so is below, is all about enlightened harmony. It does not mean that there are not going to be some outliers. It doesn't mean that at all. But what it does mean is that the dominant essence is that of spirituality. The dominant essence is the essence of what we were created to be. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Okay, and that's where we are at this moment in time. And I want to get to another space in a moment, but go ahead, Evelyn.
So does racism really exist, or is that something internally that that mankind has to deal with? Because if we're all one,
may I address that?
is it something that, does it something that we need, everybody, mankind in general need to, I don't know how to form what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling.
Okay, racism is real if you want it to be real. Do you have effects of feel the emotional effects of it? Yes, you do. You experience that. But that's not the question. The question is what you're going to do about it, what you're going to do with it. How are you going to respond to it, or are you going to react to it? If you react to it, then you're giving life to it. If you respond to it, then you are revealing it for what it is. Racism is more than a social construct. Racism is an economic construct. It's based on economics. And it is presented as a social construct. But racism is all about money. And it was and is. It was from the beginning and it is now. It's all about money. The whole idea of institutionalized or systemic racism is about keeping money out of the hands of those who don't look like me. In the beginning.
So is this, I'm sorry. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, is this something that we're dealing with internally? Is it something that we need to get right within, or help me understand?
We need to get it right in our minds. Our mindset towards racism need to be altered. Nothing can do that except your soul. Your soul does not see the perpetuators of racism being quote unquote lost, or we should not demonize them because they don't know what they're doing. Father, forgive them, universe. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. They do not understand that money is not power. They do not understand that the color of the skin has no effect on the spiritual essence of our being. They cannot see beyond the physical. So what do they see? They see the mansions, they see the private jets, they see the suburbs, they see the money in the bank, the yachts, etc. But they don't see humans. They don't see people. And if you don't see people, you don't see spirituality. Does that make sense, Elvin? Racism is not your problem.
I know. but I
do think, and I'm sorry, cutting you off. I do think it is the African though that gives energy to all of this.
No question.
Yeah, and part of that, because if you are, and we are the most spiritual beings on the earth, then we're the ones that feed these things, and part of that being fed, I mean, is fear. But tie that in too, if you don't mind. If you, yeah.
Many, many years ago, Nick said, if they don't want us to leave there. If all of us were to leave, they'll be dead in 2 weeks. You remember that, Nick?
Yeah.
What does that mean? The source of life is gone. And if life itself sees it as an adversary, then you are giving life to that adversary. However, when you begin to see that this is not who you are and this is not your issue, but it is an issue that you are supposed to deal with. And the way you deal with it, you cannot write step 1, step 2, step 3, just what we're going to do and it's going to be over with. No. The scripture says that love covers a multitude of entanglements. So when you love, it's not something that's disconnected from the perpetuators of racism. Love recognizes the damage that racism is doing to the perpetuator of racism. And love seeks to alter that course. And the way love alters that course is by doing what we are doing in terms of recognizing that it is imperative for us to give life to change, to give life to balance, to give life to an understanding that we are all Elohim. And the only difference between those who perpetuate racism and what we are dealing with is that they do not see themselves as Elohim. They do not see themselves as Elohim, and they have created these demons that supposedly function within the framework of the religion that they perpetuate, when there is no such thing as a demon in terms of the physical existence, spiritual existence of it in the way that we have been taught. So what I'm saying in essence is this: we have the responsibility to see racism as a sickness. It is no different than having COVID. COVID is a physical ailment to the body. Racism is a spiritual blindness to the essence of who you are. And the more that we perpetuate this idea of love and kindness, the more that we seek to bring understanding to the chaos that we are experiencing, the more that we are able to put in the macro the idea of the unicity of the spirit, the oneness of the spirit, the oneness of humanity. Now, how do we do that? We have been talking about this with ourselves, within the confines of ourselves, and we've seen significant change. However, we are on the brink of a change that we've never experienced before. And that change is having more and more people who were raised in racism, people who were indoctrinated with racism, and they are racist and don't even realize that they're racist. And they tell you this is not racist. Well, you don't know what's racist because you never experienced racism. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
what do you do? The creator gives, Evan, were you about to say something?
No, sir, I was just agreeing.
Okay. The creator has given us something, has put something in our sphere of existence. What is that? That which is put in our sphere of existence is a male who admits having grown up with racist tendencies, some he knew and some he didn't, and making every effort to rectify the ignorance that perpetuate racism. Eric talks about that all the time, does he not? So what are we doing when we meet, when we talk? We are putting in the macro of that kind of the mindset that perpetuates racism. We are putting in that macro a gateway for escaping the burden of racism. And when you escape the burden of racism, you begin to see that the burden of racism was not so much about the color of the skin as it was about trying to keep money in your own pocket or make more money based on the backs of those who don't look like you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we are. Someone.
So we talk about any energy flows where our attention goes. So the moment we take that energy away from the racism that's happening and give more love, the more we become settled or balanced within ourselves and for mankind.
Yes, that's one of the things that George says all the time.
See, I think it's more than that.
Let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
George says that all the time. So what is he saying? He's saying that if you're focused on racism and racist people, you are giving energy to them. You are giving life to them. You are the perpetuator of racism. You are the one who keeps racism in the earth.
Yeah.
Because your attention is on racism. Your focus is on racism. And that's where your energy is going. So when you stop, make a conscious effort to stop focusing in on racism and focus on righteousness and focus on love and kindness, that energy ceases to flow that keeps racism alive in the thoughts of mankind. Now, does that make sense?
You just said it.
Okay.
It's almost like you walk out to the bus stop every day and there's this bully waiting for you, and you cower down, and one day he makes you cry. Well, guess what? He's gonna make you cry again and again and again. That fear feeds him and makes him more of a bully. So
Yes.
that it's not just if we did do this, we have to take ownership really of the racism. We take ownership of all the things that we see, that all the isms and everything else in the earth that needs to be rectified. And how do we do that? Again, by seeing righteousness and doing what we're doing. Is it easy? No, because I struggle with a lot of things. That's why I bring it to you and talk about it. But I'm getting much better at it as we unfold what's in us. So yeah, I just want to agree with it, but you said it.
Okay. I mean, everything that brings suffering to humanity, everything that separates humanity is on our shoulders to correct. You cannot know that you are Elohim. You cannot believe that if you don't believe that it is your responsibility to bring order out of the chaos. And the darkness covered the deep. And he said, and he separated the light from the darkness. Let's separate the light from the darkness of racism and all the other isms by virtue of not focusing on it.
Yeah.
And then what happens? It says that once the light is separated from the darkness, then we say that creation begins, right? follow that line of creation. Follow the creation of the sun, the moon, and stars. In other words, the universe was brought into existence with a universal energy. And the universe that was brought into existence, the sun not only gave light for daylight, but it also gave the energy for life itself. And the darkness covered that which is to be birthed the next day. Can you see this spiritually? So we are doing this. At the very least, we are responsible for following that pathway of creation that we see in Genesis. And if we look at the whole of Genesis spiritually, then we begin to see this is not about the manifestation in a physical way of a universe. It is about the spiritual meaning of the universe. See the difference?
Pastor, can I say something? And I think I'm done. Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I would like to make a comment. Okay, you guys heard me tell the story about how I got kicked over that position that I wanted at work.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, I knew how, I said it was racism. And I really felt that it was. But anyway, so I got over that part, the people who did not choose me. And the guy who got the position, I didn't realize that I had an attitude with him until it hit me at my desk. And I said, you know what? He didn't do it. It wasn't him that rejected me. It was the other people that I thought rejected me. So I started giving him love and kindness. And you know, to this day, and I'm not bragging, but to this day, this guy would tell me, he said, I love you, Evelyn. I love you. He tells me that. He don't have to tell me that, but I just see the journey. I just see by me changing my attitude, me doing the right thing, that I can make a difference in this universe, in me, for all of us. So yes, I hear everything that you guys are saying, and it does work. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Absolutely. And Evelyn, if I may say, again, we sincerely appreciate, your spirit, because you're basically adhering to the spiritual instructions, the morality of righteousness, the morality of order and arrangement, the reality of harmony. And so it's just manifesting out of you, in terms of who you truly are, and being able to bring that oneness into what was separation and division, but how you're bringing that harmony to it. And so that's just through, again, applying the principles, of, again, Ma'at, and at the same time standing on who you are as Elohim. I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, that is a clear example of what we are talking about when we say the principles of enlightenment, the principles of Elohim. When we are talking about, when we explore them, we're teaching them, and you put them, and they have an effect on your life, and you begin to experience them, as Ellen was talking about. You see what changes take place. That's why it's so imperative that we embrace the reality that responsibility is on our shoulders, and then we make a decision about, are we going to work on our attitudes, or are we going to continuously talk about what's racist and what's not? We have to make a decision about that. Let me tell you something else too, since we're talking about this. Whether you understand it or not, and we'll get into it probably, not probably, we definitely will. Jesus depended or referred to Patah. Ron and I was talking about that earlier. I think last night and today, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, Jesus spoke of Patah. The scripture speaks of the godliness of Patah. When
And I
you
hope we
put-
can get into it at some point. If y'all want to look at it though, look at Mark chapter 7,
Verse
verses
33.
32 and 33.
It's so
Yeah.
what the Creator is bringing us to a place where not only are we being shown the responsibility, the Creator is opening our eye to the authority that we have. The magnitude of the authority that we have. The day will come when we embrace that authority in a truly spiritual manner. And that's when we truly change and everything else does as well. Why is it that we have just begun to see what Adam really means? And all of us, everyone on this phone who ever been in a Bible or a church anywhere has heard Adam is the first man. Have we not? All of us. So why are we just not seeing the depth of spirituality that Adam actually is? Why are we just seeing what it means when it talks about our spiritual nature? You are Adam, and you will remain unconscious until you make a decision that you want to know who you are. And when Adam wakes up, Adam realizes something. Adam realizes that it is Elohim. It is Creator. It is one yet many. It is like the cells in the body. I think I said this yesterday. It's like the body. One cell affects all the cells in the body. All the cells affect one cell in the body. That's what one yet many speaks to. This is not about a magistrate or a judge, as is put forth by those who translated the scripture. It's more than that. It's far more than that. This is no little g or big G God. All the G's are little. This is not what that's about. Why is it that not only are we seeing Adam, but we are also getting a clarity on, as the attention, what is it? As the energy flows, attention goes, or something like that. Whatever, George, whatever it is, repeat that, please.
Energy flows as our attention goes.
Thank you. So why is it that we are exploring that in depth? Why? But the most important thing, guess what it is? The scriptures connects us to the Cushites in Hakupata in Egypt. The scriptures connects us to Egypt, to Ptah. And that is the scriptures references Ptah more than you think. And it's something that we need to probably get into. And I don't know whether today, but definitely at some point with the understanding of what the Aramaic, how the Aramaic rather is utilizing or referencing Ptah. Any questions or comments about that?
I have a question. This is Mary. Good afternoon. The question I have, well, Adam, when the Creator put him to sleep, that whole story, and Eve was created, was it because Adam did not have that wisdom piece? Eve, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm seeing something, but could you help me with that, please?
When it talks about Adam being put to sleep, if you look at it from the original text, it does not say sleep. It says unconscious, meaning that at that point, the Creator brought that entity to a state where it was unaware of its existence. And while in that state of unconsciousness, it saw the feminine aspects of itself, meaning that it saw something that it had never seen before. Not only did it see the feminine aspect of itself, it also saw the masculine aspect of itself. It realized that it was capable of creating because it had both seed and womb, and both are spiritual. And that is the reason that the principle that is given to us says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and cling to his woman. That's not what that's saying. It's saying, with this understanding, I can create just as a womb. And because I can create just as a womb, I can be separate from a womb and still create. And then what do we see? We see a progression there. And that progression that we see is this entity in what is called the garden, in a state of unconsciousness. It begins to see good and evil, of functionality and dysfunctionality. It begins to see that. And this entity has no choice but to birth it. Because if this entity does not birth it, meaning when it says eat from this tree of good and evil, if it does not birth it, it does not have creative power. Once it does that, what happens? We have to continue, says the Creator, says Yahweh Elohim. We have to continue this state of unawareness with this being. And we have to make sure that we keep this being unaware of what life is. Why? Because if we don't, this entity is going to take life and it's going to apply it to the to dysfunctionality and remain dysfunctional, meaning that it will remain, it will not have the ability to create. So then we move forward and we see that skin is there. And of course, there's a lot in between that. And that's when the human, what we call the human, becomes what it is. But the spiritual essence of Adam is still asleep until it becomes aware. Did I say that ye are God? I say that you are Elohim. It becomes aware of his essence. Even though it was being read by the human mind, it was not understood by the human mind because the human mind was processing it with his mind and not searching for the understanding in its soul. And this continued until there was a man, there was an entity to till the ground. And when it says there's no man to till the ground, it's talking about Adam. It's talking about there is no man to till the consciousness. There's no one to dig into its consciousness and desire to become aware of the essence of who it is. Does that help you, Mary?
Oh yeah, that's good. It's good stuff. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you. So anyway, and there's much more in that, of course, along those lines. Because when we look at it along those lines, what do we see? We see all of these things that take place. And then what do we see? We see that there is a consciousness of functionality and dysfunctionality in a material mind. And that's in the form of Cain and Abel. And then we see a mindset that houses both, but not yet totally aware of it. Because that mindset that we attribute to what that boy name? That boy that came after Cain and Abel.
Seth.
Seth. We attribute it to Seth. And Seth is simply saying that the opportunity to dig into the consciousness, the awareness of your soul is present. That doesn't happen because Cain, the descendants of Cain, Cain's attitude continues and builds a Tower of Babel. In other words, it lays the foundation for religion. And religion begins to speak different languages. You can talk about Islam, you can talk about Christianity, you can talk about Hinduism, you can talk about Buddhism, you can talk about all these isms. And you'll be speaking a different language, even though your primary language that you're speaking in is English. Does that make sense? So here we are at that place. And everything after that continues along those lines. Even with Abraham and Sarah, this is showing us how Adam becomes aware of who it is and the essence of his being, and how it changes, and how Adam is aware of the desires. Every person that's mentioned is not a person. It is a principle of our mindset. It's talking about the things that the thoughts that we have, the thoughts that we embrace. I'm done. Unless there are questions or comments.
Yes, and like when you were saying the spirit is in the blood, can you I need a little bit more clarity.
See, the life of the man is in the blood. The life of Adam is in the blood. What does that mean? What is life? Life is breath. Life is spiritual essence.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the energy out of that man or out of that blood, what happens? The blood ceases to circulate.
Mm-hmm.
What causes the heart to pump blood? Energy, electricity. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So if energy is causing the heart to pump blood, then that blood also has the energy of that heart. So when we talk about the life being in the blood, we see blood as a physical manifestation of a spiritual truth. Okay?
Okay, I got it.
Okay. I'm done, Ron.
Good discussion.
We at 12. Okay.
Ron, what
Yes,
was
ma'am.
that scripture again?
It is in Mark chapter 7, starting at verses 31 and 32. And I think that's something we were hoping to get there today, but of course, questions drive our discussions. But I even want to look at the deaf and the dumb man. I'm sorry to use the word dumb. The man who can't hear or speak. We can talk about all of that.
That has such spiritual depth. It is unfathomable. FATHM.
But maybe everybody can look at it, and we when we have we can devote more time to it. We'll take a look at it. Is that okay?
Sure. Everyone else, is that okay?
Audrey, did you want to go there today? No? Yes? You want to go there today?
What you gonna say?
Let's look at it then.
Ron, can I
Sorry,
ask
I was having problems with my screen.
Okay. I'm sorry, did somebody call me? Somebody say something?
Yeah, can I ask a quick question for a minute?
Sure.
So when we was on the subject of racism or that's anything in life, so we should see, if we look at things, that everything happens for a reason, and see the good in everything, So, I mean, is that how we should just see the good in everything? And if we see the good in everything, then there's no blaming this or, you know, blaming this person or saying it's this person. If we see the good, that everything happens for a reason. I ain't saying it's easy. See it that way,
Yeah.
but that's the objective.
I think it's deeper than that, Angela. If and I please somebody will help me with this. The scripture says in the start of chapter 3 of Genesis, it says, now the serpent was most crafty than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And it goes on to say, and he said to the woman, blank, blank, blank. That craftiness, and again, the serpent is talking about your mind. So the question becomes to me, why did the creator make us like this? Because that craftiness is talking about witchcraft. It's talking about deviations and being able to cast spells and do anything that you imagine. Anything imaginable, you are capable of doing. And it's like, when you look at it from that perspective, the answer to me is you cannot run yourself. So how do you get past this? You get past it by not being an island. You get past it by recognizing that you are Elohim. You get past it by recognizing that we are all one. And it is selfishness, it is greed, and that takes you and allows you to do this and to rationalize things in your head and say, it's okay if I treat them this way or do this or treat whoever this way or do this, that because I'm gaining from it. Pastor talked about racism and greed and finances and money. That not being able to see that I'm a part, or I am the bigger picture, not being able to see that I am the universe is what leads to that. And the only way to combat that is to see the bigger picture, to see that I am a spiritual being. So when you ask the question about how to deal with it, the focus is to focus on righteousness. It's not even to wait till something happen and then try to shape it in your head and say, okay, this is racism, but I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to see it this way, or be there. We have to be there all the time. That's the prayer without ceasing. That's the meditations. To recognize that I am righteousness, and when I see these things, and again, as you said, this is not easy, because as I said before, you cannot run yourself. If this is how you think, this is the attitude of the mind, it really is designed to keep you focused, because if you're not focused, you see things that bring about confusion. And I hope I didn't make matters worse. If somebody could see that and straighten it out, I'd appreciate it. Angela, did that make sense at all?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Ron, before we get off the line, may I say just one thing? I've been sitting here thinking about it. When Evelyn talked about her situation at work, that resonated deeply with me, and it reminded me of the lesson that we talked about last week when we were talking about strongholds and subtle strongholds. What she just described for us about her thinking about her coworker, that was a subtle stronghold that she had not even recognized was a mindset that she had developed that was making her, that was governing every action and interaction that she had toward that individual. But when she had an eye-opening experience and realized, oh my God, I'm punishing him, or I'm responding to him, and he wasn't even the one that did it. That was that aha moment for her, when the eye opened and she could respond to him from a place of loving kindness. And as a result, what she sowed, the loving kindness, she was able to reap back from him. And I didn't want us to miss that, because to me, that was a classic example of a subtle stronghold being torn down and you're awakened to truth and the reality of who you are in a situation. And based on how you choose to respond in that situation, now seeing who you are, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So that just resonates deeply in me because that's what we teach. That was a classic example of why we call in, to be able to learn how to do these things and to show us who we are in every example of life in which we encounter with other people and we're having interactions. It just shows us who we are. And I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Great observation. To talk about strongholds and very subtle strongholds, I was want to give you one of mine. I was driving back from Aiken this morning. Went to spend the weekend with my sister, and I was driving back this morning, and something hit me that I started praying for, started meditating on, and it is the kids in my family. All of them are growing up now. They're in their early 20s. They're out doing this and doing that. And I really sometimes kind of think about the young men, because I have a nephew in his mid 20s. I have another one who's 19. And you know, they're typical kids. And one of them got pulled over and he was telling me about it. So I went into prayer about that. And thinking about, you know, and when I was finished praying about it or thinking about it, this little voice said, "How bad do you want that? How important is that to you?" And I sat there and thought about that. Is that more important than this? Is that more important than this? And I'm sitting there thinking as I'm driving, and it hit me, you know what? This should not be any more important than any prayer that I pray or anything else that I meditate on. So this hit home because it's personal, it's family, and I end up doing it with a little more thought and emotion. But it kind of hit me that you look at things from your perspective, the human, your feelings and emotions from your mind, but look at who you are, and that is the source of who your prayers, all your prayers should come, not from Ron, the man, the feelings and emotions and the mindfulness, but from the essence of being Elohim. If you believe that, that should be the source of in the energy of your prayers. And I'm sitting there driving, I'm thinking, wow, you know, it was kind of an eye opener just for me. But you bring that up, that was something that kind of hit me this morning. So I agree. The subtle strongholds are things we don't think about sometimes.
Think about what you just said. Apply it to you and the things you struggle with.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's all within you. If you can do it externally, I mean, do it for someone else, do it for yourself. And I think that we when we are dealing with those things that we struggle with, we see the struggle more so than we see the solution.
Yeah.
Get into this place where we are in understanding. I talk to myself a lot. This is not who you are when things would come up like that, especially dealing with racism. That's not your issue. That's not who you are. So, who am I talking to when I say that's not who you are? I'm telling my mind that that's not who you are. I don't process like that. Now, what happened? My mind doesn't process like that anymore because my soul has renewed my mind. Make sense?
Yeah. And that answer, Pastor, is the end of Mary's question. The soul has renewed the mind versus not being able to control your mind or your thoughts or your who you are. So does this make sense, y'all? Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's 12:33, y'all. Do you guys want to go to Mark now, or do you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me let me ask. Now, us the teachers, we'll stay on all day.
Yeah.
We know that. So, is there anyone who is on who would like to continue other than teachers? Because this is what we do. Come on. Or if there is a teacher who says, no, we should wait, or just talk to me, please. Okay. I guess we go.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I'm in Mark 7, and I'm start at verse 32. They brought to him one who was deaf and spoke with difficulty, and they implored him to lay his hand on him. Jesus took him aside from the crowd by himself and put his fingers in his ears. And after spitting, he touched his tongue with the saliva. And looking up to heaven with a deep sigh, he said to him, Epithea. And I'm gonna let Pastor open that up a little bit, but that means be open. And his ears were open, and the impediment of his tongue was removed, and he began to speak plainly. And he gave him orders not to tell anyone. Okay. There's a lot in that. One of the things that I like is the deaf and the guy who couldn't speak. That speaks to all of us. This is not talking about a physical type thing. This is talking about spiritually where he was. There are so many people out there that are deaf. There are so many people out there that don't have ears to hear this. So that's the kind of thing that this is referring to. So when you look at it like that, it is what we're in the process of doing right now. Not only opening our own ears, but opening ears when we talk about putting things in the macro, allowing mankind to see things. But the root of that word epithea is patah. Patah is in that word. In fact, it is the root of where that word came from. And although I have read the scripture before, I had never seen that. And that to me, it means be open. And it's much more than that. It is talking about like a doorway or something that opens that you normally don't always get opportunity to walk through. It's talking about something that you can move between one world and another world. You're standing in the gap. You become a doorway sort of thing. So, Pastor, do you want to open it up, because you and George see these things. I've talked about them before in the past. So, you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it speaks volumes to what we have been talking about. As you said, Patah speaks to an opening, one who opened his mouth and created the world. It is a reference to the creator of everything that is. And when Jesus put the fingers in the ears and he cried out to Patah, what Jesus was actually doing was not so much physically opening his ears, but he was giving him the spiritual, showing him that he has the spiritual ability to hear, but not only to hear, but to be open to the energy of Patah for the express purpose of creating the space for him to be a creator and recognizing who he is. I think that it is no coincidence that all of these years we have not seen that until now. And I like George and many other of us have been looking at Egyptian religion or the spirituality of Egyptians and not make that connection. And I think the Creator is allowing us to make that connection. Why? Because we have been traveling this journey, making every effort to go back to beginning, and then we realize we never left beginning. And if you look at this, what Jesus is saying, and give perspective to it, what Jesus is saying is that it never left beginning. Jesus is telling us that regardless of where you are in terms of time or space, you still are at beginning. And the thing that gets me is that if Jesus recognizes this, for being Aramaic speaker, and recognizing that the Aramaic speech for patah is epipatah. It's the same word of the Egyptian patah. So yeah. Jesus is saying to us that, showing us rather, the effectiveness, the power of patah, meaning the power of the energy that brought everything into existence. Not only is he showing us that, but Jesus is saying that you are open to it as well, if you will allow yourself to be. If you hear what I'm teaching, if you embrace the reality of who I am, if you really believe, not only will you do the things that I do, but greater things than these ye shall do, then you will understand that you have to be open to patah. Because when he talks about Elohim or Allah, he's talking about who we are. It's not written that we are Allah, we are Elohim. That's what he says. But in this regard, he's reaching beyond being Elohim and reaching to the space where Elohim came into existence. Questions, comments, make sense? Additions to that, please.
Well, one other thing I like to add, it also talks about creating space and shaping what you want to see to happen. And I want to talk about the shaping part, because we've said for years, we don't try to shape things. But I think this is talking about you have a child that you teach and you bring up, and that child is now in their teenage years, and you allow that child to do things that you didn't allow them to do years prior to that. So as we mature and see enlightenment, I think what that is saying, if you recognize what this is saying, and you have understanding of it, and you have submitted yourself to it, you have accepted the fact that I am Elohim. And I want to see righteousness. I want to see loving kindness, and you are the ones to bring it into the earth. It doesn't mean because you are moved beyond, I am a selfish being and I want this to resemble me. It is talking about as you operate in the spiritual being that you are, that is what you're shaping. That is what you're helping to bring into manifestation into the earth. And Pastor, you can clean that up or see it a different way.
No, I don't. I see it the same way, because what I see is when we were talking about racism, we were shaping it.
Yeah.
We were not talking about what it's going to look like when all is said and done, but we were shaping the desires that we have for the earth, and that desire is order, is harmony. And racism is one of those things that is impeding harmony in the earth. So in that regard, I see exactly what you're saying, and I embrace that. Others, comments, questions? This is clear.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is Jesus and patah the same energy?
Yes and no. Are you and Jesus the same energy?
I don't know how to answer that. Is that rhetorical?
Okay, I'll make it rhetorical.
It's yes and no, Evelyn.
Yes.
Thanks, sister.
Yeah, you are that same energy. but you can make a decision. Your decision is to become aware of it or not. So if you're not aware of it in your mind, you're not that energy. Like when we go to church, what do they tell us? You can't be Jesus. Is that not what we're told? Even though the
Yeah.
scripture said we can do what Jesus did, we are told that Jesus is 100% God and you can't be Jesus. So,
Well,
so
it doesn't change the energy though. The energy said you may not be aware of it, or you may turn your back on it. There are some people, there's some people in this world right now that don't believe they're black men, and they act as though they're not black men.
leave Kim Scott alone.
You know, so no matter how much you run from that, you can't run from yourself, as we've said. So it doesn't change the fact of who they are. We are Elohim, and we are in the process of uncovering that to ourselves. We've always been that. We just were always unaware of it.
But you got to be that in your mind. Your soul knows it.
Yeah.
But the mind has not embraced it. When your mind embraces that, that's when you become aware of who you are. And when we say aware, it doesn't mean that you just became it. You've always been it. But your mind did not allow you to see it that way. Look at this. And I know what Nick has a comment. Look at this. We only see the scriptures through the eyes of the European mindset. That's the only way we've been able to see it. If we continue to see it through the eyes of the European mindset, what is that mindset? You're not Jesus, you're going to die, you're going to go to heaven, and you're going to shake your grandmama's hand, and then you're going to sit on God's knee, and you're going to talk to Jesus. That's what we're told. And now, when we look at it from the mindset of the originators, and that goes all the way back to Egypt, that when you look at it from that perspective, if heaven is off of this earth, then why would there be a new heaven and a new earth? Heaven is not a destination. Heaven is an awareness of enlightenment. And in that regard, that's who we are. However, mindsets make a difference. European mindset makes a difference. And the difference that it makes is what we just talked about. In talking to Eric periodically, his mindset about scripture is shifting. I mean, my God, one of the things that he wants to talk about is Christianity being a religion of bondage. I'm like, you know what? Have at it. Let's do that. But that's not the mindset that we had. I'm done. Evelyn, I hope that helps you. Of
Yes,
course,
sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Thank
Nicholas,
you.
what is it? You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say maybe something simpler. When he said when it says Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears, just intuitively, parts of this are jumping out at me. But that one in particular, I believe, has to do with touching a deeper place than the surface in order to unblock something, which is directly related to what we were just talking about. To reach into a deeper place to unblock the ability to hear in that way, to receive from your origin or your source or creator.
Nick, would that be the same thing as, are you saying rather that that's the same thing as Adam, waking Adam up, Adam gaining aware of who it is. So that unconscious state that it was in is now awakened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's
The thing that, go ahead, Nick.
no, I'm done. Go ahead.
The thing that caught my eye was, it said that Jesus sighed and then he said what he said. Why did he sigh? To me, it's like he's breathing new life into him or something like that.
He was like, oh, I gotta deal with this.
Yeah, why you don't know this?
But, well,
But still,
every
I
single one of these verses has, it is a multi-layered allegory,
right.
metaphysical, spiritual thing all in one. So all of this stuff, there is much to unpack. When he says he looked up to heaven and sighed, that has everything to do with a meditative state and states of consciousness. But anyway.
And in that opening, when you talk about an opening, right? Opening is also a gateway. Open the gateway to righteousness. Open the gateway to love and kindness. And when that gateway is open and we become conscious of that, and we embrace that, then that's when we begin to see change in ourselves. And we cannot overemphasize that. If you are seeking to see harmony, love and kindness, then that's who you have to be within. You have to be in the place of harmony yourself. And you have to have a deep desire to embrace the reality of what is actually said in the scriptures. And I am very grateful that our awareness of the connection that Jesus had to Patah is being shown to us at this particular time. Why? Because everything that was taught based upon what came out of Egypt. Could Jesus have been saying, when Jesus said that he did not come to destroy the law, but he came to rightly interpret the law? Could Jesus have been saying that he came to rightly interpret the law of Patah? The Mayat, the principles of Mayat? Could he be saying that? Because we know that the Old Testament, the utterances, the 10 utterances, the 10 commandments, are predicated on the principles of Mayat and the other principles. The whole idea, do unto others as you have them to do unto you, that's inscribed on the tombs in Egypt, from ancient Egypt. All of these things, that these sayings that of Jesus, you can find them in the tombs. So I do believe that for such a time as this, this connection has been hidden until now. And God knows we have searched the scriptures inside and out, and we have looked at the origin of spirituality in Africa, in the kingdom. We looked at all of these things, and I do believe that we are being shown this for a purpose beyond what we are able to comprehend right now. It says to me that the authority, or the authority to wrought change is granted, meaning based upon rather what Ron talked about when he talked about mysticism, when you talked about the spells, that kind of thing. When you talked about the mysticism, that came out of the Kushite kingdom. It came out of Egypt, mysticism, and we have just begun to scratch the surface of mysticism, meaning that we have just begun to see beyond the sight of our eyes, because what we have been taught is that all of this is demonic. You're being able to speak to the weather. You're being able to change the course of things. That all that's demonic. We have been told, but that's the European mindset that we've been told is demonic. Yet we've seen it happen. We've experienced it, and for quite some time we've kept it to ourselves. But we've seen all of this. So we are at this stage, this place, the point in this journey, however you deem it, or whatever you deem it to be. Here we are at the gateway of creating with words. Abracadabra, I create with words. That's where we are at this place. The question is, what are we going to create? And I believe that the metaphor about this flaming sword being at the entrance to the garden, that metaphor, that we are able, or we have already rather, with these understandings and desires, stepped into that place beyond the sword. The sword is a metaphor of being purified in your thoughts and desires prior to opening up the channels of understanding functionality in terms of life itself. Questions or comments? Does it make sense? That's why I believe we are. I feel that deep inside. Angela?
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question. So was the sword placed there, was it really there placed there to keep us out of the garden? Or just as you said,
That
just purify?
That sword is a metaphor because it's a flaming sword. What does fire do? What does the sword do? A sword guards, fire purifies. So is guarding the entrance. And your desires are what bring you to a state of purification. Look at the lake of fire. The lake of fire speaks to the idea of burning the dross off of gold. It speaks to the idea of being purified. It does not speak of going to hell, even though some people tell you to go to hell. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about you being purified from the hell that you've been going through, I guess. And that allows us to see functionality for what it is. Does that make sense? Angela?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I have a comment in addition to the comments that have been made, and more particularly the comment that Nick made regarding closing the ear to hear the inner truth, the inner message. One of the things that we think about when we have our ears is when you put your fingers in your ears, you put your fingers in your ears. Well, it's hard to hear. It's harder to hear when you put your finger in your ear, if you hear. And so it could also be a metaphor that we need to close out the distractions that keep us from getting to that inner place where we can really truly hear. And I think the perception is that this entity was unable to hear. But I am saying that other things that prevent us from hearing that inner voice that's us is all of the noise. And that's part of the meditation, the issue about meditation. It's a putting the finger in the ear, in a sense. That's what meditation can lead to, so that you close out any of the external noise and you open up the internal to be aware of what's inside, the truth, in other words. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Barbara, in regards to what you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the middle ear, doesn't that deal with balance? So when he took his finger out the ear, all of a sudden everything was restored, correct?
That's an excellent point. It could be a metaphor for, now what's in him begins to balance itself. When we get into the issue and when we become aware of being enlightened, that has to do with inner peace, inner balance as well. We come to a place where we're not questioning anymore what if, or I wonder if, or could this be. It's a place of knowing, and that's a place of balance. So that's an excellent point, Mara.
And to show you how you guys are right on point, that's what Douglas Klotz says. He says he closed the ears to show that real hearing where you are at this point, it happens on the inside. It's not an outside coming in, it's an inside going out. So you hear from the inside, and what resonates with you, what that vibration feels like. So it makes it more keen. So yeah, I just said add that to agree with what's been said.
And Pastor, I do resonate with you when you talk about the truth being the teachings beyond the Ten Commandments. It's the teachings of Patah, and so if everything is built on those teachings, then the law goes back to that original law, Patah. Because if it talks about the laws, other people could say, well, there are 612 laws, not just the 10, but the Pharisees added all those other laws, and the implication is that if you just talk about Jesus, the entity coming to what did he say, to emphasize those laws, that's not true, because those were man-made kinds of laws. So it has to go back to the essence, the original, the pure, the purity of truth.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And good afternoon. And Barbara, and what you're saying is that as we go back and we look at, the origin, we talk about, and again, it's not something that we can go into depth today, but Pastor, when we talk about the Shabaka stone, this is the epic Bible, with regards to the original teachings, in terms of the Cushite and Kemetic kingdom. And so when we look at the primate of essences, when we talk about Patah, we can begin to appreciate the four aspects of the Shabaka stone that talks about the history, the geography. It relates to the primate of essences, which talks about the original Trinity, but it also speaks about the pre-existing order of essences, and the order of essences. And those are just, again, dialogue that I think down the road we can get to, but I think that foundation, as Barbara's speaking about, is very imperative with regards to our desire to seek, the truth. I just want to share those thoughts. I'm done. And Pastor, you may elaborate on that if you wish.
I do. I want to add something to that. The Shabaka stone that George mentions, if you read it, what you would find is that it deals with everything. It deals with everything before creation, and then it speaks of how creation took place, and then it goes into physiology, it goes into biology, botany, every science that you can think of. The Shabaka stone talks about it. So the king who rewrote or copied rather the stone that was before him, it was deteriorated, and he copied all the things that he could get off of it onto another stone. And now there's a book called the Shabaka stone, and if you read it, it is in depth it goes in depth about everything that pertains to the earth, its existence, and its creation. I wanted to share that with you because we reference that a lot. And each time we reference it until we get an understanding of what the Shabbat Stone speaks to, I think we should reiterate what it actually is. But I thank you for bringing that up, George.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Pastor, one of the questions I wanted to ask last Sunday evening related to expanding a little bit on how the origin of things like medicine, things like history, things like Aristotle and Plato, all the things that they talked about, mathematics, etc., came from what you just said. And you did, before, I didn't get the question asked, but you did touch on that a little bit. But you might want to just remind folks next time that everything, all of those teachings, all of the sciences, everything came from that original stone, Shabbat stone. So they understand that it doesn't matter what Plato said, it doesn't matter what Newton said. All of that was information that was readily available to folk from the Cushite kingdom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the reasons Imhotep was considered a god, because of the multiple things that medicine, 400 different diseases he identified, architect for the pyramids, the mathematics and how it relates to the universe. All of these things and more came from Imhotep. So when we talk about Imhotep, we are not simply talking about a man who did not know who he was. We're not talking about quote unquote intelligent man in terms of our intellectual understanding today. We're talking about Elohim. We are talking about God. Imhotep was seen as that, Elohim, because they surmised that the only way that he could have understood all of that is because of his oneness with Ptah. I'm done. We're done for the day. We've been like 2 hours.
So Nick,
Questions and comments. We don't want to leave those out.
yeah,
Yeah, it seems to me I had a very powerful feeling while we were speaking that the recognition of the connection between the teachings of Jesus, its connection to the more ancient Egyptian mysticism and spirituality, its connection to Ptah, etc., and all the original spiritual meanings of these things is in a way a loosening or a lightening of the load of confusion that has occurred over the thousands of years since the original spiritual understanding of these things was the thing being focused on and was more commonplace. So all these traditions seem to have had a descent into confusion and materiality in terms of becoming more of just a religion. That happened in Egypt, happened at the beginning of Christianity very quickly. But I think the recognition that, as Jesus said, he came to fulfill the law, not to get rid of it. That is the recognition of the original spiritual truth of these things that have for so long been covered by layers of confusion, layers of materially focused awareness and ignorance. Because Peter is also Ptah, and Jesus says, upon this rock I will found my church. It is the original truth of what the Ptah, what the sort of spirit essence of all of these things are meant to convey to anyone learning them, I believe. And it just felt like that was a very important realization and part of the removal of that layer of confusion, which is itself the removal of the power in some way of the religion of materialism, the religion of greed, essentially, which is what all of these things descended into. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. Mr. Roy?
Don't want to leave anybody out though. Is there anyone comments or questions before I know we've run over a little bit. Great discussion though. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, we can pick up there tomorrow, okay? Great discussion. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question before we go.
Yes, sir.
I forgot. Did everyone have you received the information about how to connect tomorrow night at 9:30? Is there anyone who has not? Anybody who has not? Okay.
Angela, are you trying to speak?
No, it's
Yes,
an echo.
You have the information?
Yeah, I got it. I was gonna ask how you spell the word you said, is it patah?
Yeah.
Is that PTAH?
You had to ask somebody other than me.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.
Thank
and
you.
Look forward to tomorrow.
Okay. Have
Bye-bye.
a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, family.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.